Episode 63. Today we got Gina K. Osborne, owner of True Beauty Marks, and a great bridal business for boat and brides that are looking to get their services done on their wedding day. And she did our wedding and did a fantastic job. So Gina, appreciate you stopping by today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
How long ago was your wedding at this point? What year?
It was 2016.
Okay, all right.
So not terribly long ago, but
I'm an OG in the industry, you know?
Yeah, right? Well, I mean, talk about that a little bit. Not just an OG, but pretty damn good at what you do too,
Thank
right?
you.
Hall of Famer
I'd like to say so.
from the knot.com, which is a pretty big deal in your industry. So just walk us through like what you got going on today, when you got started and all that fun stuff with True Beauty Marks.
Yeah, so 2008, went to school in LA to like a prestigious makeup school. Came home, wanted to freelance, do more editorial stuff, fashion industry, realized you can't make money in a super artistic industry. So I started freelancing and basically worked with a bridal company for a very short time, realized I could do this 10 times better, and left. A couple of the girls were like, take me with you, and they are still with me today. So I established the company in like 2010. I've been cruising ever since. We do roughly 200 weddings a year. Last year was our biggest ever. We did, I think it was like 287, something like that. We had 58 just in October
Every
alone.
day. Yeah.
But it's only weekends, right?
Oh my gosh.
We're sending out the fleets, right? There's 21 girls,
Wow.
Artists on my team, and then a couple admin positions too. So
Yeah. So how do you schedule all of that, right? Because just seeing and knowing, and maybe it's always a little interesting, actually getting, your services done for our wedding.
Yeah.
It was just insane, the amount of scheduling, coordination, but not just that of actually the events, but like the trials and the prep work and knowing what you're going to do on that day.
Sure.
So how is all that unfolding so that you can actually get to those almost 300 weddings that you're
lots
doing?
of communication for sure. We use Dubsado, like similar to like a HoneyBook CRM, and we have forms that the brides will fill out like leading up to it. So we have them fill out like who's getting what services done, and then from there we basically take max to 6 to 8 weddings per day, and we puzzle piece our team in. So we have girls that just do hair or just do makeup, and we just basically, we have a map like where every artist lives. So every it's an intense thing, but we have it where we can try to book the girls like close to where they live as well to make it convenient for them. Because we're all about just making things flow really well and taking care of our people. So yeah, it's taking care of the bridal parties, but also, most of us are moms. So it's about that too, like taking care of our team for sure.
And dealing with that type of volume and really on the most stressful day for most people.
Yeah.
Like most people's lives, like making sure like you got 100, 200 people, 300 people like for your wedding coming into town.
Yeah.
You got things got to run smoothly and you got to look good.
And we are also the first vendor to really be in contact with the bride. So we set the tone for the entire day. If our scheduling is off, it puts every other vendor off in their schedule. So it is really important. And that's another huge thing of working with a team. Because if you just hire one artist for your hair or makeup and they may or may not have a backup if something happens, life happens, we have an entire team. So for that reason, I actually take much less weddings per year. I only do 15 of more premium luxury clients, but it gives me that opening that if one of my main girls is out, then I can step in.
Awesome.
So there's a lot of planning, a lot of communication in place, but it's all good.
Yeah. How stressful is it dealing with, obviously all these brides they're usually as stressed out as could possibly be. Just the communication, everything leading up to it. You kind of got to be a mastermind of your craft and making sure hey, nothing can go wrong. Or
you can
else
call yourself a mastermind if you'd like to.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a lot of moving parts there though.
Yeah.
A lot of times they have planners. So planners kind of coordinate all of that craziness where the bride is kind of, they're floating that day. They're enjoying cloud nine. They're kind of getting pampered by us and stuff, which is nice. So it's honestly I don't personally see as much of the stress because I have an office manager for that now. but I did for years. I did it all. And yeah, it really just depends on the clientele that you market towards, in my opinion. We kind of are not that heavy glam, heavy over the top with our style and our art. So for us, we don't really attract brides that are really high stress and have to have every minute detail like exactly perfect. We kind of market more towards like our down to earth people that are like us that just want to be happy and feel beautiful, and that's that. So it helps to kind of direct things in that way too.
That's awesome. And now when you're trying to bring on talent, like your artists, now how hard is it to recruit people that, align with the same, style and values in which you apply, obviously, what you've been doing for the last 13 years?
It can be tough. I will say a lot of our girls are like kind of rallied by my team, to be honest, which is super cool because I have like layers of friends that work with me at this point, which is just like awesome because it's very much a community and we're very like family in a way. But yeah, there's been like years of that. So that in itself has been awesome because we all are like-minded in how we live as well. But I will say building a second team now and trying, like that's not really in my network. It's up in Lehigh Valley. That has been more difficult. So we are going to like business fairs at like, beauty schools and getting girls that are newer and maybe don't have kids and have more availability and want to work in the industry. So we're kind of going that direction and trying to rally like some newer girls. But for the most part, I've always found that it's like a whisper down the lane sort of thing where they just kind of, I have this friend that I went to beauty school with, or, I worked at a salon with, and she wants to get out of the salon, full time. So we're like, great, let's interview her, like bring her on. It's also just like an energy thing too. I think it's like picking up people's vibes and doing it that way that like, it fits, like when it fits, it fits.
Well, especially in your profession and the company that you have and that you've grown, like if the style's off or the vibe's off, like that's a direct reflection on the brand that you've taken over a decade.
Absolutely.
Right, to build.
Yeah. Yep. And I've had a few that we've had to kind of, but also there's a reliability there too. Like you can't just call out sick. I mean, they have in the past, but if you do, like you're not going to last very long. It just doesn't happen. So finding that, like, I actually had a colleague say, you have a bunch of unicorns on your team. And I was like, yes, I do. And I'm keeping them and I'm keeping them happy because that is like a huge thing for me is like definitely keeping my girls that have been with me forever. I mean, 12 plus years for some of them, like they're invaluable to me. Yeah. So I definitely am high priority list is those people and keeping them happy, basically.
When you left beauty school and started this deal in 2010, did you really envision that you'd have a team of 21 girls in multiple locations? Was that the goal? Like, what was that whole deal like?
I basically just wanted to be able to support myself doing some sort of art form, and realized quickly that, okay, gonna have to do hair and makeup to make better money. And then I'm like, okay, well, how will I go outside of this? Like, I'm not gonna want to do this for my whole life because I was meeting like artists that were older in the industry and their backs are jacked up and they're just not, they're physically like beat. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to be that. So let's figure out how we can kind of do this so I can still raise my kids myself and then still do something creatively that's like helping other people. Mm-hmm. So that's when that snowball effect started happening for me. It's like once I started with a couple girls and they were like loving it and feeling fulfilled, and I was like, okay, this is a thing and this needs to keep happening. So it just kind of continued from there and here we are.
Yeah.
When you were getting started, what was the most difficult part? Like, obviously, you had a few good girls in the beginning. Was it the talent side? Was it getting the actual leads in the business? Like, what was proven to be the most difficult early on?
I would say it definitely wasn't, like, I had a few solid girls that I was close with. Like, one was my best friend. Mm-hmm. She did hair. It wasn't necessarily that. For me, business, once I started really getting out there, started flying in, to be honest. I think it was about finding the right way to market myself maybe and just like figuring out like what my brand was and like all of that. Because I didn't go to business school. I didn't know any of this. My parents have been self-employed, but for me, it was like building the plane while flying it pretty much.
Yeah.
And so all the contracts and like things that were more like making it a legitimate business, I was like, just
Yeah.
like, just what do I do? And so it was just like relying on my people to kind of help guide me and finding the right people for me to support in that way, for sure.
That's a struggle for a lot of people, especially who people want to start their business and don't want to work in corporate America. Like, I have the skill set, I know the direction I want to go, but how do you monetize it? How do you market it? And how do you stay within business, IRS, compliance, guidelines of everything else that can really drag away from the creative side of
especially
that?
being a creative. It's like, that's not the right side of my brain that I need to use. It like messes you up. It does.
But the answer is no one knows. You know,
Right.
or just like you said, it's just kind of like, all right, let's try this. And it's like, okay, either that
Exactly.
worked great, or like, let's do more of that. Where that didn't work, it's like, okay, let's stay away from that. And then you just, you know, like you said, just keep flying the plane as you're going.
Yeah, totally.
That's great. At what point, like early on, did you realize like this is really going to be a success, or was there ever a time early on where you were like, ugh, I don't know if this is going well?
Honestly, no, I never felt that. Thankfully, knock on wood. I just kept doing what I loved doing and felt I've always been the type since a small kid where I've been very confident in my decisions, and I follow my intuition, and that just felt right to me to continue. And, you know, honestly, like the girls kind of started trickling in on their own for my team. And business, I would say, took off probably around when I got married, which was like 2014, or I got married in 2015. But like when I really started like planning my own wedding and getting involved in that for whatever reason, things just kind of blew up. I shortly after removed myself from the like basic branding of my company and set like different packaging for myself too right after that. And so that was able to really feed my team a lot. So I think that move was smart in that way strategically, but from very early on, I was not about just pushing for brides, because brides are a one-time thing. You don't have return clientele for the most part. I have had one, which is awesome. Double wedding.
Which is good and bad.
Yeah.
You know her.
For
She's
that,
a high school
yeah.
friend of ours too,
Okay.
but I love it. So I love that she remained loyal and came back to me, because most people wouldn't want that same thing. So I was like very honored about it. But yeah, you don't really get that return clientele on the regular. So for me, it was like, okay, who can I network with that's going to refer us? It's other vendors and planners and florists and people that get booked before hair and makeup for the most part, which are photographers and things like that. So very early on, I had done like kind of like expos, which some of them are horrible and I didn't really want to waste my time with, but there was a really cool artsy one in Philly that I did. And that I think was the starting point of like that trajectory, because for me, I had some models that we had done. I had a booth set up and stuff. And I was like, why am I sitting here talking to all these brides that may or may not book us? I'm like, I need to go talk to everybody else that has a table here.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. Like the second half of the show, I had my girls kind of run the ship, and I just started walking around and just like introducing myself and like talking with all the other vendors. And from there, they were like, oh my gosh, there's no other businesses like yours. And I was like, yeah, like, let's go, come on, you know, and just went from there. And I think that was a really big, small at the time decision that I didn't realize would affect things so well, but it did. So, and I'm still friends with some of them that are in the industry today, which is cool.
Especially when, to your point, like, it's like one and done. Like in our business, it's completely different. Like if we get a client, we have like a 99% retention rate, unless they like die or like something extreme happens. Like they're working with us probably for like their life for the most part. Like to your point, knowing that it's one time, they might refer a friend, but you know, most people get married once, twice, maybe 3 times at the most, right? If you're not going to have recurring revenue from
it's
that.
very rare.
Yeah. So as you look at the packaging of everything, like aside from the strategic relationships that you have and develop, like what other ways are you looking to, or have you found success in drumming up business to attract that next bride in that next generation now, right? So most people like in our generation are kind of like moving on. So like generationally, are things changing a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't read anything. Like we could literally you could be signing away your
kids.
firstborn child to
Yeah.
us and they would have no idea. I find that to be a struggle. And unfortunately it's now my office manager that manages a lot of that. And it's frustrating because she's like, how else can we word certain things to make them read it? And I'm like, well, I'm putting them with pretty graphics and we're doing all this stuff to make it, more appealing. So they'll actually read like the important points, but there's only so much you can do there. As far as still drumming up new clients, I feel like, yes, there is still referrals with bridesmaids. And we have a lot of like our girls will get requested. Oh, Brittany did my hair and makeup I was a bridesmaid in my cousin's wedding and that kind of thing. We do get a lot of that. But I will say our top sources is Google is still actually pretty well. So they send us a decent amount of like leads and stuff, which I've been kind of pushing towards that more, but it's definitely social media. Like I started before social media. So I didn't have that as a tool. And so that's why I've been really trying to focus on that sort of, doing reels and all of those things. So that has made a big difference because the first things that brides do now, they're not finding you in magazines really anymore, which we're still a little bit in that for features and whatever, but they're going right to your social media to look at your work and then maybe from your website from there. So it definitely has changed in that way. And we're still on the Knot and Wedding Wire, but honestly, that's just to kind of house reviews at this point.
Sure.
It's not really like, there's some like mixed things from the vendor's perspective, like for the Knot and Wedding Wire, they're like kind of taking advantage of us and stuff in a lot of ways. So it's kind of finding that sweet spot, which I think sort of is social media.
Yeah.
How big of a lift is that for you? Right, because you're running the business, you're a mom of 3 kids, right? You're married and you're trying to run the organization, but then you got to do all this creative content as well to showcase your work. Now, I think fortunately for your industry and what you do, like the visual's so important, right? Compared to, we can only show so many charts on our stuff.
Yeah.
People are not interested.
No one cares.
No one cares anyway.
I follow that. I follow it. I'm like,
okay.
ooh. But yeah, it does definitely depend on the person.
It's different.
I think you can search hair and makeup all day, every day, and you're going to see a varying style. You're going to see like super heavy-handed, full glam looks to softer stuff. But it's about being relatable, in my opinion. It's about like connecting with the type of people that you want to connect with and creating that community. So like, again, I'll go back to my girls. Like my artists have also then extended themselves on social media. The ones that they get requested the most. And so it just kind of comes back to a loyalty thing within my team and my company, but then also just being personable because I could show every single thing I could just show of my work, but you're not really showing like who you're going to be spending your morning of your wedding with either. And that has a big thing. Like I can tell immediately. Yeah. I can tell immediately when a bride gets nervous. It's always when she's getting makeup done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, mid-face and I'm like, it's all right. Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
You got to be able to read that and read that room, which is important. And we do get a ton of feedback from really our team in general of how good and how like calming that they made their bride feel or all of that. Just loved it. Felt like I was getting ready with my best friends. Like that is, to me, is so much better. That's going to be way more memorable from everybody's perspective and like how you made that person feel as opposed to she did great hair and makeup. She slayed my face, whatever. You know what I mean? So it definitely is more of an energy exchange for sure.
Well, especially on our wedding day, just the fact that I've known you for years, but just knew that like Gina's gonna be there. She's gonna do a great job. It's taken care of. Like it was the last worry that was on her mind, which made our day run so much smoothly.
Absolutely, and I do feel like yes, it's an energy exchange and the whole thing, but at the same time, it's kind of. Like I said, it sets the tone for the whole day, but having that trust, like regardless of how well you plan your wedding, you're going to wake up with brides, at least. We'll wake up with wedding nightmares about something. Doesn't matter if you're hiring literally
in the world.
Yeah. No, you'll have some sort of wedding nightmare that you wake up from as a bride. Doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
And hopefully hair and makeup's not one of those things. But even from a bridesmaid's perspective, we've had multiple situations where they come in and they're nervous. They're nervous because they've either had a terrible experience in the past or they've never had their hair and makeup done and they just are like scared to not look like themselves. And then I ask them when we're done, so how you feeling now? And they're like, oh, they're all excited and they feel awesome. And so that's also part of it. It's the whole energy exchange, but it's also how you make those people feel in that way that you create that look for them. And that also is a lot of communication with each client. So.
Yeah. And the one thing I think that's really important that you were talking about is just making everyone feel like really good about the experience they're having, because that's also great for you guys just referral wise. Mm-hmm. If someone has a big wedding, they have, 8, 10 bridesmaids in there. That's like 8, 10 opportunities that you guys could have, in the future, which led me to one question I wanted to ask you, like going back, what like percentage of your business comes from like social media versus like your strategic relationships with other vendors versus just like referrals, girls that happen to meet you by chance at one of their friends' weddings?
Our vendor referral is still top.
Yeah.
It's still top. And I also really tried to nurture that in ways like when we rebranded and all of that with my company, like I sent out goodie boxes of product and, hey, just showing you our new brand. We're so excited. Da, da, da. I sent that to my vendor friends, not the brides. I sent it to all my vendor friends. So they were like, ooh, excited, sharing it on their socials and, little branded cookies and this, that, and the other that would be relatable for all my vendor friends, as opposed to, hey, brides, they don't really care one way or another. Yeah. It's a fleeting thing for them. Which is just, I feel like it's so different than most other industries that it's like okay, we're one and done, thanks, bye. But those connections that you make either within the industry or within your company or your team, like those to me are what like really are solid. So,
what was your thought process of kind of getting to that point? But you mentioned earlier you went from just you as you're getting rolling to being really good at what you did, and then removing yourself and focusing more on the original brand, and then rebranding and evolving. So, like, what was your thought processes of why do that and why kind of go down that route directionally compared to you just being the face and like you were the star?
I knew with getting married that we were probably going to start a family. And I knew that I wasn't going to physically be able to do as much and didn't want to have to do as much. But the problem that I kept running into early on was everyone just wanted to work with me because it was my work that was on the face of everything. And it was my work that, was carrying the brand at that point. So there was only a few other girls with me. And so that's when I'm like, okay, I need to come up with some sort of team structure. I need to come up with, a way to push business towards them and them not just wanting to work with me all the time. Because obviously you're only available so much on weekends. And so I also was at the time working like 65 weddings a year myself. And
that's a lot.
Burnout happens when you're running the actual business side of it too. So that's when I kind of separated my brand. I raised my pricing, which for me was scary at the time. But since then, I'm like, okay, let's just keep going,
Because then you got to pay your girls, plus make a profit off of them, not just
that was the hardest part for me. Because my biggest value was investing in my people.
Yeah.
And so early on, I didn't know. I didn't know to calculate every product. And I didn't know to like really work out. Like I didn't pay myself for admin. I just did it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So that was like a big mistake I made for years because I just was like basically not making anything for doing the office work and all of that. So for me, I put that into my people and I think that's why they're still here with me today. But that for me was like, okay, I'm securing that they're going to be well taken care of and they're going to want to put their best foot forward. And I've given them, education opportunities and all of that. And yeah, I think once I then separated myself and my packaging out from that, then there was a ton of people that were like, okay, we want the cheaper option or whatever that looks like, depending on their budget and their lifestyle, all that, and what they prioritize. So some are like my bride this past weekend, she was like, you only do 15 weddings? How special. She was like top tier booking, like prime bride. Amazing. Amazing.
Need 15 of those next year too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. She got it and understood she wanted like the extra like luxury services that I offer too. So you have like your varying types of brides too on top of it. So for me, I'm like, okay, well, why can't we service like all those different types and have options like for them basically?
Yeah.
So once I actually removed myself from that, then it was like, okay, things were really starting to fall into place. And I would still take a lot of weddings then, but it was able to, it, like, allowed me to basically focus on my personal work and still like run the team and have them doing their thing. But I didn't feel as married to like having like carrying it all, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So as things are evolving for you now,
Yeah.
is this the last rebrand? Is there more rebrands coming? You got another location opening? So like, what is that all looking like as things roll out?
So I'm actually rebranding my personal brand, which has still been hanging around since 2015. Just it's same thing, just changing up logos and stuff.
So it's True Beauty Marks, just so.
True Beauty Marks rolls,
Yep.
But I have like Gina K is like luxury.
Got it.
So I have like, we're going more that direction. And eventually once the kids are a little bit older, maybe I'll start doing destination work, but we'll see. And yeah, so we have TBM as a whole, and then we're starting like another regional team to see where that goes. And then we have our new on-location barber services, which is Groomed by TBM. And that is a whole other thing we're super excited about because it's not really done in the industry. And that is going to be a team of barbers that go on location for the men, get them all cut. If they want straight shaves, they will then shower, get all the hair off, come back, get like a face mask, make sure their skin's on point, and then get fully styled, which is amazing. Because my husband, not to throw him out there, but he ruptured his Achilles tendon 4 days before our wedding, and so he crutched down the aisle with a boot over his like really nice Xenia suit. And I will say, like, he's never been one to really like style his hair. That was a me thing once we met. And so our wedding day, like, his hair's never looked better because Mark legitimately took like a blow dryer and like gave him volume and then put actual product in his hair. So it was like not a hair out of place. It was perfect for photos.
Love it.
And it was cool for photos to see them getting ready. Because usually it's like the guys are just chilling. Maybe they're having a drink, but they're like putting on their cufflinks and tying their tie. And it's the same stuff.
Yeah.
This kind of just switches it up a little bit. And you can only take so many photos of like the dudes just getting dressed. So, you know, the women, it's like all the things. It's like flowers are coming and the jewelry and the veil and all of that. So it's nice to kind of break that up and have that option too. But yeah, so we're launching that. We're excited about that. Well, it is launched, but we're growing it, I'll say.
Do you see that being more part of like that luxury offering for more of the premium weddings, or kind of involved in the everyday, every weekend of the 300 weddings that you guys are doing?
I think for now it'll probably kind of live in that luxury. We are going to offer, you know, different packages similar to how TBM is structured. But most people don't think about that in their budgets right now, to have like barbers come in and do like the dads and everyone. And so hopefully that will become more of a trend and we'll kind of get that out there. But we did win like Best in Philly already for it. So I think because it's like not a thing yet. So
Awesome.
yeah.
What's the most difficult part in trying to get your second team up and running? You know, because you're trying to naturally, I would assume, match the same energy, style, you know, experience that your original team has built out. So what's that process been like?
Interesting. So one of my main girls down here lives in Bethlehem. So she's actually going to be my team manager up there, which has been amazing. Otherwise, I wouldn't have really thought to go up that direction because we are starting to sort of push towards like North Jersey and things. But she's great. We have her and one other girl that are like central to that area. But other than that, it's been really hard because I don't have my network up there. So I don't have as many, like I have some vendors, but it's really like finding artists that are going to be solid and that I feel confident and them being reliable and things. So that's been something that we're going to tackle more so in this off season, is really starting to like grow that for this next season. But we already have like 11 or so weddings up in that region that are booked for next year. So we're like, okay, we just got to get the girls, you know, roll in, and then we can book more up that way.
So how far out are you booking? Like it's at least a year, right?
Yeah. It's usually around a year. We've had some inquiries for 2025. But yeah,
I think
it's
2025
hard.
is
And
nuts.
you're planning your life out that far in advance. So you're like,
I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow.
yeah, like it's hard. It's an
for
adjustment.
like family vacations
Yes.
and
Yep.
like things you want to do.
Yep.
Like, well, just booked your premium wedding. We are not going anywhere that
Yep.
weekend, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's definitely an adjustment for the girls. So the way our team is structured too, not all of them are like booked that far out in advance. So we have, you know, sometimes our lead artists that do hair and makeup, they'll be booked out, you know, years in advance. But the other girls that just work with the bridal parties, they're like, you know, a month to a month and a half booked out. So it's not as insane for them, but our girls know what they're getting into before they before they agree to it. But it's also great to have your own like brides that you have those connections with too. So yeah,
That's awesome.
That's still great for them. Like even just like, you know, your regular girls to have 2 months of work booked out like consistently. That's, you know, that's incredible for them, because I'm sure that's, you know, something you stress about in that business is like, hey, are you going to work at a place that has consistent business coming in like all the time?
Like
So-
waiters and stuff too. Like something like, hey, like we're slow tonight. Like you're getting cut, right? Like you're getting cut early, and you ain't making that much money, if any of that.
Exactly.
Night.
Yep. Yeah. And so we try to share that with the team when we can, you know, oh, we already have 70 some weddings booked for next year. Like we're trending in a great way. You know, it's only going to grow further, obviously. And, you know, they're able to like, all right, cool. Like they don't have to worry about when's work going to come.
Yeah.
And they don't have to really even market it either, which is great.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
We were just talking to one of our neighbors here in the building about like, you know, traditional 4-year college education versus learning a skill set or a trade or things like that. So, you know, as someone who's has an artist and you have a skill set that doesn't require a 4-year traditional education to become a doctor or a lawyer, I'm just curious, like your perspective, like running a business, doing your thing and doing it very well. What's your take on the future for younger individuals that are going through the educational route? Maybe we get you a little fired up here a bit on this, but I'm just curious to get your thoughts. Yeah.
We're homeschooling. So my son, he's 6, but at like 3 was like talking about wanting to start his own business. So we're like, let's go. Like we're all for that. I just think that it's about finding your gift as an individual and doing what is. Because typically when we find like what our gift is as a person, then we're able to hopefully embrace that and grow from there in whatever it is that you want to do. Because I'm a firm believer in doing something that you love every day, not just going to whatever 9 to 5 that you hate. Like it's interesting now since having kids, like my son has like 5 different things lined up that he wants to do. He wants to play for the Phillies. He wants to be a construction worker and a trash man. And I'm like, I'm not downplaying on any of that. Like whatever it is that you absolutely love, like I will support that. Cool. It's just figuring out how to make it work, right? Like for me, it was, I wanted to do something creative. Not many artists actually make a solid living. So they call it starving artists for a reason. So for me, it was finding that right fit. I was a tomboy when I grew up. Like there's no way, like people that knew me when I was like a teenager were like, you do hair and makeup for a living? Like what? You had like short hair and were like in mosh pits at emo concerts, like back in the day. Like what is this? So, but for me, it was really just finding that little like puzzle piece that just fit right in to be able to support myself and everything. So I'm all for small business. I'm all for supporting that and finding what it is that makes you want to get up in the morning.
Yeah. And how did you mentioned finding that, right? How, from your perspective, did you actually do that? right? And
It's an interesting story, actually.
Okay.
So I had friends in high school that did a lot of theme parties, like 80s parties and all that. And a lot of them were like costume related. And so I would always go all out with my little group of friends. We'd roll up, crush these costume contests. The 80s, I think we did Rainbow Bright. Then they had a robot rock party. And I was like, all right, I'm not doing the old cardboard, box thing, robots, whatever. So I bought silver body paint, made a silver dress, said G Unit on it, and like wore a wig. It really wasn't anything that special, but like I had close friends of mine coming up to me at this party and introducing themselves. Like they didn't know who I was, just with a silver face. I was like, it's Gina. Like, why are you introducing yourself to me? And that's when I realized like, whoa, like makeup can totally change the entire way that you look. And so I started like looking more into that, found like crazy makeup schools, went to one in LA because I wanted to learn from really cool artists. And my airbrushing teacher, Nelly Rekia, she's this phenomenal little petite French woman that does incredible body art. And I just was so inspired by all of that I'm like, okay, you can literally, like, she makes people into like bugs just with paint, not sculpture, not effects, nothing. And so for me, I'm like, this can totally like make or break so many things for people. And that's kind of where I wanted to go with things. But, I'm like, I'm good with bridal. We're good here. I can still raise my kids. I don't got to be like in New York hustling or whatever. But it's just a smaller scale.
Yeah.
So
filling that creative void, I think like is so critical. But then how do you balance that with like the other things like a family and all the other good stuff that you love, even though it might not be the 100% most ideal thing that you're doing too, right?
Totally.
One question I have, the one thing that I thought was interesting that you said was, when you got started, you never envisioned, where you would be today. You had, like you said, you have 21 artists, you have two additional admin people. You're starting to scale from not only the bridal, the groom side, you're getting all these different multiple teams. Like if we look out 10 years, like what are you envisioning for the future then? Like is this going to keep compounding? You're going to have a team of 100 people? Or are you going to be franchising? Like what's the thought process if we look out like 10 years from now?
So this second studio and second team is kind of our trial run for that to see how it goes. But my husband retired from teaching, and he and I have been coming up with this whole new pay structure for our company recently in the last like year and a half or so. A lot of little tweaking, but it's kind of like this amazing combination that I've never seen anything like it. And so I may end up like bringing that or selling that or teaching that to other beauty businesses. But yeah, besides that, I don't know if I'm going to go a teaching direction. I'm not sure with that yet. I'm sort of like toying with that idea. There's a lot of that in our industry right now, and a lot of people that are going that direction because they don't want to be as heavily involved or they don't have teams. So they're doing that. They're traveling with it. I just recently was in Atlanta and was helping a friend who owns like a big, it's a hair blog, but it's specified for styling. So it's not cut and color, which is what most of the industry is. It was just for our little niche. And it was a huge success. And that's probably going to be a yearly thing. So I helped her run that event, and I might start to go that direction as well. But as far as the company's concerned, we're kind of seeing how this second one rolls. And then, I don't know, maybe we'll surprise ourselves.
It's awesome.
Third,
like
fourth,
I said, we're
fifth,
still
we'll
building
see.
the plane. So, yeah.
Keep on
awesome.
building it, right?
Yeah.
So let's transition, maybe get into some money stuff. Right now, we got this awesome story and background for you. So running a business is not easy. We talk about a lot of great stuff that you have. There's some really good moves that you've made along the way, some not so good. I'm sure we haven't got to, but money's a big factor of it. You could produce a phenomenal product, but if you can't pay the bills and you can't support your family, it doesn't really matter.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So when you think back to some like the best money moves that you've made, what are they?
So my first thought is to my people and to the right people, I'll say. It wasn't until I hired the office manager that I currently have that I was like, oh my God, why didn't we do this sooner? And I gave her raises, multiple, like right away, because I was like, we want to keep you forever. Like you legit are, to me, invaluable. And I think that it's finding the right people, and not even just within your company or within, that work directly with you, but like other people too that have these strengths to be able to invest in that will help your business like financially.
Yeah.
Like my accountant, amazing. Like people like you guys that like, I don't really want to deep dive into a lot of this stuff and it scares me. But I feel like if that's a next step, like I want guidance in that. So for me, it's always been about like supporting the right people, and it's a mutual thing, and finding those people for sure. Like I would much rather invest in that than, anything else like marketing or whatever. Also investing in myself was a huge thing because I felt like as I was able to grow, then I was able to take my team and lead my team better, to be able to have everybody grow and have everyone grow in the same and right direction. I think like, I went to a retreat at one point, and I've done like some other stuff with a consultant that has literally been life-changing. It's also helped like bring Mike home and like give us that like, get us past those nerves of like, okay, we can do this. Like, we're entrepreneurs. Like that was a conversation we had. I'm like, babe, love you. And I know you've had this stability your entire life and you're used to that, but like I'm an entrepreneur. I come from entrepreneurs. We're going to figure it out. And since then, he's like a different person. Like he's
That's a
like,
tough jump though.
It was really tough in a lot of different ways. But I think now he's like, I never want to go back ever. Like he sees just like the freedom, and he just loves it. So that, to me, that was also like investing in myself. I was able to kind of figure out like, okay, this is the right move.
Yeah.
And just growing personally it just changed everything, in my opinion.
And when you talk about investing in yourself, is that like in your skill set as an artist? Is that you as a leader? Is that just like your mental outlook on?
Yes, big time mentally. Allowing yourself to get over hurdles that a lot of times we have this self-doubt and all of that. And I, for a long time, was a very negative person. I would always look towards skepticism, and I would very quickly like look towards negative things, or like, all right, always wanted to be prepared for the worst and like hope for the best. Now I'm like, and specifically to bring it back to money, like money mindset for me, I was always brought up in a scarcity mindset. So like, oh no, I can't afford that. Now I'm like, all right, I'm going to get my Gucci, and you know what? I'm going to figure out how I can afford that instead of just frivolously spending things or whatever. It was definitely more about like an abundance approach as opposed to, that scarcity mindset of like, no, just I'm going to stay in this lane, and that was hard for Mike to adjust to because he was used to that. And now he's like, okay, like let's actually take off these blinders and look at what else is possible. So that for sure, like investing in myself in a mindset approach, and also just for sure education and staying on the forefront of that so I can teach my team in that way is huge as well. Because I feel like if you as a leader are staying stagnant, then your team sure is either going to outgrow you or they're just going to stay stagnant with you. And so
neither good.
No, neither are good at all. So so that was for sure one of my key investments, I think.
Love it.
Yeah.
So maybe let's go to the opposite side.
Sure.
Right. What was the worst money move that you made?
I think it's hard to say worst. I don't know. I mean, I think that not being more, it's not specifically a money move, but not being organized as a business early on with finances and not understanding like, okay, you really shouldn't be paying your girls this much because you're not actually making anything as a business. And thankfully, my husband did have a salary for years and was able to kind of like float things personally. But it wasn't until I really started to dig into that more that I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So rather than giving my girls a pay cut, we had to like kind of work this, what we were charging and work the percentages, and like really over a few years time had to kind of get it to where, okay, now we can make a profit. I know a lot of businesses struggle with that in the first handful of years or whatever, but I think it was just actually once we got organized that we know like all the services that we perform like every single year. We know how many airbrush makeup, how many, we keep track of all of that. And a lot of that is actually Mike. Like he's been coming in and like data collection, 5,000, like all of it. Yeah. Cause that's not stuff that I want to do, care to do. Like, no. But once we're able to actually look and make more educated decisions, then that's been a huge game changer. We got to do that personally too. He's on me about it, and you are on me about it too. But I'm like, yeah, we need to do that more personally as well. But I
we'll
definitely
talk about
think,
that after,
yeah, I think that's definitely something that has been a game changer, is not figuring that out first.
Yeah. When you looked at those books early on and realized like, oh, we're putting out a great product, but this isn't financially sustainable. Did you ever have a moment of like, are we going to be able to get out of this? Are we going to be able to like figure it out?
I knew we would. Yeah. For me, it goes back to like, okay, we're problem solving, which I do fairly easily, especially with my husband and I, we bounce ideas off each other. But I would say that like, it was a stressor. Like it was kind of a smack in the face for me to realize like, I'm not making anything for the hours and hours that I'm sitting here, like doing contracts and emails and all this stuff. And I think around that time when we started to make those adjustments was when we were like, okay, now I think we should actually hire somebody to do this. So it would free up my time to actually do things that are my strengths, like networking and social media and all those types of things, and teaching my team. And so once we were able to actually make that like little switch, it was like, I don't want to ever go back.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. So last question here then, if you had to go back and talk to your younger self, right, what would you tell yourself about the future, business, or just guidance you would give a younger Gina?
Sure. I would say that I feel like as a kid, I would get criticized about certain things on how I was. Don't sweat the small stuff, G. Stop focusing on all the small stuff. And it had partially notes to do with like, I guess, having a negative spin on things. But now I've kind of turned that around to be my strength. I am focusing on the small details because to me, luxury is in the details. So like you look at something that's worth a lot of money, every little stitch is going to be just right, all of that. Where I relate that to my business and my work and what I do, okay, well, how can I give them a luxury service? I'm focusing on all those little details, like a scalp massage before I do your updo. Forget it. My brides melt in the chair. To them, they're like, why wouldn't everyone want to sign up for this package? Like, that's crazy. So I've learned to kind of basically take what I was criticized for and like make it as my strength and look at it differently. So I'm able to like actually give that as my gift instead of being something that I thought was like negative about myself. Like, okay, don't sweat the small stuff. Well, yeah, what if I do? And I turn it into a positive way. So I think to kind of sum that up, just kind of embracing what your core values are and figuring out what your gift is and being able to utilize that into what you do is what I would tell my younger self.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this was fun.
Yeah, it was.
I appreciate you stopping by.
Thank
and
you.
If anyone wants to check you out online, maybe book a service or explore your offerings, where can they find you?
TrueBeautyMarks.com. That's it. Or socials. That's what G said is my personal one. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Gina,
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys.